So if we're being honest, that first window of World Cup qualifying didn't exactly go to plan, did it? I don't think anybody's really all fired up about the results that we got, and heading into this next window, if it was the exact same players going in, I would be a little bit concerned, but there's hope, because there were a bunch of players, whether because of injuries or whether because of club situations, that weren't able to make that first window that might be able to have a big impact in that second window, might be able to help in some problem areas and help us, put together a cohesive game for the first time in a long time. That's what I'm really looking forward to. We'll see if that happens. So I've got a list of 7 players. Why? Because I like the number 7. 7 players that weren't a part of the last World Cup qualifiers that have an opportunity to be a part of this World Cup qualifiers that can definitely help us in that October window. All that more on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up? My name is Sam. This is the Yank Report, the show we talk about the U.S. men's national team. If you like that kind of thing, please hit that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel, hit the like button. If you really want to support the channel and go all in, you can hit that join button at the bottom and have access to some really cool badges. You can have access to some behind the scenes stuff, and you'll be able to see the videos before everybody else. So one of the big issues that the U.S. men's national team had in that September World Cup qualifying window was the ability to connect the defense with the attack. We needed a player that could shuttle the ball from the defense all the way up to that front line. And I know a guy who happens to be very good at that, but was unavailable due to injury in that first window. His name is Yunus Musah. Yunus Musah is the teenager that had a leg injury coming into the season and had to miss out on the opening window in September, but he is back and he is playing for Valencia. He just had a really nice game coming in as a substitute for Real Madrid, showing his quality against one of the top teams in the world in Real Madrid. Yunus Musah's superpower is this ability to pick up the ball and run directly at the defense. He can move it forward. And whenever it comes to distribution in the final third, he's not like Cesc Fabregas or anything like that, but he's pretty good at it. He's a little bit better than some of the guys that are doing it right now. Thinking about like Brendan Aronson in that first game against El Salvador, where he really got muscled out and was just not able to be effective. Yunus Musah is not going to get muscled out. I don't care who's in that midfield. I don't care if it's Goretzka out there bursting out of his jersey. Yunus Musah is a player that can win battles in the midfield and is up for a fight. Just like players like Tyler Adams, he's fantastic at anticipating and recovering balls. So whenever you have Yunus Musah and Tyler Adams on the field, it's just a conveyor belt of possession. Anytime we lose it, we get it back pretty fast. He's great at pressing, but that his ability to just move the ball up the field, I think just inserting him in that U.S. men's national team lineup, it's just going to pay dividends immediately. I'm very excited to see what Yunus Musah can do, because it feels like we haven't seen him in a long, long time. He wasn't on that Nations League roster. He wasn't in the Gold Cup. Yunus Musah had a big game against Real Madrid this weekend, and if you missed it, that's on you, because I got a notification right to my phone from the OneFootball app saying that Musah was playing. OneFootball is perfect for stuff like that. If you want to track these Americans and you don't really know, because there's so many, it's hard to keep track. OneFootball is the perfect spot. You just put the players in that you want to follow, like Yunus Musah, and then whenever they play in games, whenever they get subbed in, whatever, you get a notification. You can kind of customize your notifications, and you'll never miss a Yank abroad, especially the ones that you really want to pay attention to. And then after the game, you can go back and see how we played, check out his stats, all that good stuff. For a free download of the OneFootball app, you can click the link in the description. By clicking the link, you'll not only never miss another Yunus Musah minute at Valencia ever again, but you'll also be supporting the Yank Report directly, but you'll also be supporting a company that supports content creators like me. So thank you to OneFootball, and let's get back to the video. At number 2, I have a guy who's up the list mainly down to circumstance, and that's Tim Weah, the winger at Lille. Weah, of course, was on the original roster for September, but had to be scratched because of an injury. And the thing about Weah is, we don't expect Gio Reyna to be healthy for this particular window. He's still suffering with an injury that he had against El Salvador. And we don't know what's going to be of Christian Pulisic. We're assuming that he's going to be back, but I don't know if he's going to be 100%. And we saw in that last window that creativity in that final third is a big issue for that team. So we need players who can be dynamic and creative. And for my money, Tim Weah is one of those few guys that we have that is... I think he's a very graceful player. He's a player that slows down the game whenever he gets on the ball, and he's very cerebral. He can pick out runs. He can get in behind himself. He just creates a lot of things through his movement and his intelligence on the field. So considering that we're not going to have Gio Reyna likely, and we don't know what kind of shape Christian Pulisic's going to be in, we need players on the field who can create in that final third and potentially score goals. And I think Tim Weah is a player that not only can create, not only can play and fill in that winger position, but he can score goals himself. And that's something that this U.S. men's national team desperately needs at the moment, because it's been a struggle for quite some time now. At number 3, I have one of the fan favorites out there that we just haven't been able to see for one reason or another for a number of windows, and that's Chris Richards, the center back who was at Bayern Munich during the last World Cup qualifier call-up, was in the middle of a move to Hoffenheim, gets that move during the qualifier. Well, now he's at Hoffenheim, he's playing, and he's going to be available for this call-up. Chris Richards, as I'm sure you know if you're someone who follows this channel regularly, just has so much potential in that center back position. He has incredible athleticism. He's a guy that can run and cover and have range like Miles Robinson, but he also is tremendous on the ball. He can play those balls that we're hoping that John Brooks was going to play that we didn't quite see in that last window. So he's kind of a combination of Miles Robinson and John Brooks, which is something very exciting. Now, to be fair to Chris Richards, we've never seen him in a World Cup qualifier. He has like, what, 2 caps with the national team at all. So we're putting a lot of pressure on him, suggesting that he's going to be a top center back right out the gate. I don't know if that's the case, but I think just getting him into this camp, getting him into World Cup qualifiers, hopefully putting him in some situations where he can be comfortable and just get that experience out there to slowly just become that center back that we know he's going to be eventually for the national team. I think it's just absolutely tremendous. And, you know, of course, we saw last window that maybe John Brooks ain't the guy that we expect him to be, and maybe there's some alarm bells moving forward. We don't quite know yet. It's still too early to say that, but to have a safety blanket like Chris Richards to possibly come in and fill those shoes, it's a very exciting potential thing for the U.S. men's national team. At number 4, I'm taking a bit of a chance here because this is a player who has not yet confirmed his international allegiance, and that is the right back from the LA Galaxy, Julian Araujo. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I am a huge Julian Araujo fan, and I think the sky is absolutely the limit for the player. I think he's really finally starting to put everything together, both the defensive side of the game and the offensive side of the game. I think he's just so purposeful in the attack. You know, there's a lot of different types of fullbacks out there. You've got like your pace merchants that get up and down the sideline like a DeAndre Yedlin. You've got guys that are great in the build-up like Serginho Dest. But one thing that we don't really have in this pool is someone with a lot of ability in the final third at the fullback position. Maybe Anthony Robinson, you could say that he's good there. I think he puts in a lot of aimless crosses. But for me, a guy like Julian Araujo, whenever he crosses into the box from his right back position, he knows exactly where that ball's going, and he's looking to create. He's a very cerebral player in that, and he's such a awesome weapon to have at that fullback position. Now, I know you're saying, but we have Serginho Dest, and he plays at Barcelona, and he's all great. Well, the reality is Serginho Dest is not going to play 3 games. We saw in the last window that Serginho Dest ended up getting injured in that game against Canada, and it kind of really messed us up for that 3rd game. It threw a lot of things off. So just having more players in this team that can produce at the international level is something that we really need. And I think if Julian Araujo accepts that call-up for this window and joins the U.S. men's national team, I think he'll slot in at that second right-back position, and I think that he'll get a ton of minutes moving forward for this team, and I think it's just a tremendous possibility for the full-back depth chart moving forward. At number 5, I have a player that I'm really excited about, another teenager, this time a player who's already playing in Europe for Borussia Mönchengladbach. I'm talking about Joe Scally. You know, every player breaks in Europe in different ways, and Scally is in that position where he kind of ran into, he's taken advantage of some misfortune of others, because he started the season at left back for Mönchengladbach because the Mönchengladbach left back went down with injury, and then right as that player came back, their right back went down with injury. So Joe Scally has had the opportunity to log a ton of Bundesliga minutes so far, and so far it's kind of been a mixed bag. You know, he's had some fantastic games, some okay games, some not so great games, some okay games with not so great moments. It's just kind of been all over the place. But really, that's what you would expect from, I believe he's an 18-year-old starting in the Bundesliga for the first time. But at the same time, there's enough good moments that I think a lot of people in Germany are very excited about Joe Scally, and I'm excited about him as well. I mentioned earlier about Yunus Musa that he's the type of player that just doesn't back down from challenges and is just ferocious and is ready to fight. And I think Joe Scally is another one of those players that is just ready to fight. Whether he's playing left back or right back, it doesn't matter. We saw in that last window that Anthony Robinson really put himself a step forward in claiming that left back position. I think he's definitely the guy for at least 2 games in this window. However, behind him, Bello was, he was okay. I don't think he really grabbed the bull by the horns for that left back position. So there's an opportunity here to bring in Joe Scally, have someone to log those minutes, to take some minutes off of Anthony Robinson's legs, and maybe even to push him for that position. If it doesn't work out, he can be on the right back as well. He's a very versatile player that can play either side. Either way, whether he's a right back or a left back, I definitely want Joe Scally in this camp, and I definitely want to see what he can do in that World Cup qualifier level. At number 6, I have a player that, for me, has been sort of mysteriously left off of the rosters recently. A player that brings a lot to the table at a position of need, and that is Luca De La Torre. Luca De La Torre is a player, like I said earlier about Yunus Musa, who can kind of connect the defense to attack. He's not going to quite make those gut-busting runs like Yunus Musa directly at the defense, but he's a really smart passer, and he can operate both kind of in that defensive midfield as well as further up the field in that final third. He can kind of see passes, and he can connect things, and he can bring a lot to the table in that passing game. We saw in that first window that, after a few players went down, we ended up with like Kellen Acosta playing at that 8, and Kellen Acosta, for all he can do in winning fights and winning duels and getting balls back, he's not much on the ball himself. If you have a player like Luca De La Torre in there instead, he offers so much more in the possession side of the game. Luca De La Torre is a player that I've been calling for on a lot of these rosters recently, going back to the Nations League, and I would really like to see him. I think he started off the season well for Heracles. He's getting a lot of minutes, and at least in that game that I just watched him on ESPN, he looked like a player that deserves to be a part of this World Cup qualifying October window. Before I get to number 7, there's a few honorable mentions out there that I kind of want to talk about. Julian Green is one that I think a lot of people want to see, and I'm still just not sure what position Julian Green plays in this lineup and what he really brings to the table that we're lacking right now. He's a player that, if he gets his name on the list and ends up in that October window, I'm like okay with it. If he doesn't, I'm okay with it as well. I don't have really strong feelings regarding Julian Green. Matt Miazga was another one on that list of players who were kind of in flux with their club and has since established himself in Spain in the Spanish Primera Division. I know at Straight Red Card they think that there's a conspiracy against Matt Miazga, but considering the depth that we found at center back with guys like Mark McKenzie stepping up, Miles Robinson playing really well, I'm comfortable with Walker Zimmerman as well. I'd like to see Chris Richards in the mix. If Matt Miazga is on the list, fine. If he's not, okay. I don't think that Matt Miazga really changes things for this squad. Jesus Ferreira is an interesting one because honestly, considering how well Pepe did whenever he came in from FC Dallas, if you look at FC Dallas, if you've been watching FC Dallas recently, Jesus Ferreira is on that squad with Pepe, and he's having just as good as the season as Pepe right now. And a lot of those goals that Pepe's scoring is coming from Jesus Ferreira. And, we talked earlier about the team needing creativity, and Jesus Ferreira can be that creative spark. The issue with Ferreira is, where do you play him? He likes to be played as a withdrawn striker, but, Gregg has played him as a false 9. I don't think that he's going to be playing as a false 9 for Gregg. Maybe he could play as one of those tucked-in wingers. Maybe he can play as a 10. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's like a clear fit for Jesus Ferreira, and it also seems like everywhere that he could possibly play, there's other players there who have just as much a right to that position as he does. So that would be another player that I would be excited if he's on the roster, but not necessarily crushed if he's not on the roster. So who is my number 7? My number 7 is an absolute favorite. I think he's a guy that you had to fall in love with if you watch him in the Gold Cup. He's the guy that my dad texted me and asked me why he wasn't in the roster for qualifiers whenever the qualifiers came out. He is Matthew Hoppe. Now, Matthew Hoppe, like a lot of these guys, had a tough club situation in that September window. He ended up getting a move out to Mallorca in Spain. He ended up starting a game for Mallorca this weekend, so he's back and playing. He had a goal that was ruled offsides, but you just see that Matthew Hoppe is a dangerous player, and he's always on that edge of offsides and always kind of testing the defense. And if you do find him in the box, he can be a lethal finisher. We saw that in Schalke, and I think we're going to see that again in Mallorca. But besides that, he's just an absolute fighter. He's got a ton of grit. I think he's got all the grit. I think they backed up the grit dump truck and poured it all in Matthew Hoppe. And, whether he'd be deployed as a winger or a striker or however Gregg wants to use him, I think that, you put him in Panama away and he's going to fight with everything in his body. And I think that that's what we really need in these World Cup qualifiers, especially these away games. So I would absolutely love to see Matthew Hoppe on this list. Now, that's my 7 guys. And, I think it's all fun and games to just say these 7 guys should be on the team. But to be fair, I think that I should explain how these players can get on the team. In that first window, we called up 26 players, and we could have called up more. So I would like to see us call more players this window than we did last window. So that, for me, that accounts for Yunus Musa gets a free call up, and maybe Luca de la Torre, although I would take Luca de la Torre perhaps over James Sands. Same thing with Chris Richards. We had guys like, maybe Tim Ream doesn't need a call-up. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But Walker Zimmerman didn't even play in the last window, so Chris Richards could come in for Walker Zimmerman. So that would make a lot of sense for me. Whenever it comes to Joe Scally, I think Joe Scally gets George Bellows' position. Whenever it comes to Julian Araujo, I would take him over Yedlin. But honestly, I might just take an extra right back, whether it's Scally or Araujo anyway. We saw that 4 fullbacks was just not quite enough for us as we experienced injuries. So I think we should take 5 fullbacks in this particular window. And Weah and Hoppe shouldn't be an issue because, Reyna's not going to be a part of this window in all likelihood. And I think that we ended up needing another attacker anyway. So I think the addition of 2 more players, honestly, we took 26 last time. I wouldn't be mad if we took 30, if we took 29, at least 28. We needed more players. We needed more bodies because people just kept dropping like flies. So those are kind of the players I would look at subtracting in order to bring in more guys. So that's my list. I'm curious who you guys would like to see in this October window. Who do you think is going to come into the squad and have a big impact for this October window? Is it some of the guys on my list? Is it not? Are you upset about some of the guys that I said shouldn't make the squad in October? Let me know in the comments section. As always, si puede hablar español, déjame un comentario en español para que pueda practicar mi español. It's getting better, guys, you gotta admit. If you found the video interesting or entertaining or whatever, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to become a member, I would absolutely love to have you. I've been posting kind of behind the scenes videos and stuff like that in the member section. You can kind of have a direct line of communication with me and get one of those dope badges. You can see some of the people in the comment section have those green 1-month badges. I'm pretty proud of them. So set yourself apart in the comment section, get you a badge today and become a member. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.